We start our meetings with a public comment period. You're invited to come forward to the microphones. Please state your name and address, and then you have 2 minutes to share your views with us.
Hello, my name is Rita Jessen. I reside in Winona at 269 East 4th Street. I'm here today to comment about the puppy mills in Winona County. First, thank you for allowing a discussion about this issue. I read the staff report, and my friends and I have numerous questions, such as, what does the county know about dog breeding and canine health? Permit conditions vary widely. How can this be fixed? What are the compliance measures? Why does the staff defer all animal welfare to the state and federal government, which has been proven to be ineffective? I respectfully request 3 things. First, that an in-depth study be done to look at this industry and the effects on the animals and the community. Second, that a moratorium be adopted to stop new permits. And last, that the public and canine health experts be allowed to participate in any discussion and recommendations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Idel Ann Larson, and I live at 227 East Sanborn Street, Winona, Minnesota. My experience with puppy mills was when my daughter first got married. Her husband surprised her with her first little fur baby, Star. She was a miniature Samoyed Husky. At 4 months, she became blind, deaf, paralyzed, and her jaw was seized shut. She couldn't see, hear, eat, or drink. She was unable to walk. They took her to the vet, and when the vet asked where they got their puppy from, they told him the name of the people. And the vet said that they were a puppy mill breeding people, and that was the cause of Star's complications. Unfortunately, there was nothing the vet could do, and they had to put her down. My daughter was devastated at the loss of her first fur baby, and this happened 20 years ago. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ann Joria. I live at 344 Knott Valley Drive. I'm also here to talk about the puppy mills. I've had cats and dogs my whole life, ever since I was a little girl. I volunteered at animal shelters in New Mexico and also here in Winona. I care deeply about how animals are treated. I don't understand why the county chooses to grant permits to puppy mills. Mass producing puppies is an old, outdated, disturbing model that is proven to harm animals. The county needs to complete an in-depth review of its permitting and compliance measures for the breeders, as well as a realistic understanding of what life in these kennels is like for a dog. This review must include the public, canine health experts, and animal behaviorists. I'm also asking that a moratorium be established to prevent any new permits from being granted in order to allow time for this review. Thank you.
Hello, Ann Olson, 1041 Grand Avenue, St. Paul. I'm here to speak about the dog breeding facilities. We did read the county staff report. While I appreciate the staff's work, we do have some concerns and questions. The biggest one, animal welfare. We do believe that state statute allows the county to assume the duty of animal welfare, and it can be part of the public safety, morals, and general welfare of a community. Animal welfare is not excluded from law, nor should it be delegated. Permit conditions, the conditions, as you know, vary widely, placing animals at risk. So we ask how this will be addressed. 3, compliance, multiple questions. We found one breeder who has been signing export certificates for other breeders, indicating he was the owner. This suggests that he is exceeding his limits of dogs. Has this been reviewed and discussed? And the PowerPoints attached for both the state and federal government, we believe are misleading. One photograph shows a dog jumping off a dock into a lake. We know of no dog breeder here, breeding facility that brings 100 or 200 dogs to the lake to go swimming for exercise. That doesn't accurately illustrate exercise within these facilities, which also suggests the same things about sanitation, caging, ventilation. To us, for the PowerPoints, it's not just what's in the law, it's how the law is enforced. Based on our research, the state and federal agencies are not experts in animal welfare, and that has been proven through lawsuits, audits, congressional orders, and complaints. But even today, our main question isn't so much who is doing animal welfare, it's really, should the county even discuss it? Is the county concerned about the welfare of these dogs? Can this be part of the discussion? Which was why we support an in-depth discussion and hope that the public and others can participate. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience?
My name is Shanna Moss. I live at 225 Country Club Drive in Lewiston, Minnesota. I was born and raised here in Winona County, and I am the current dog director at Winona Area Humane Society. I have experienced some of the outcomes of these breeding facilities here in Winona, as well as others across the country. These breeding facilities are not based on love or care for the animals. They are a business to sell puppies at the highest price possible with the lowest production cost possible. In my personal experience, I have cared for a dog named Juniper. When Juniper was spayed, the vet discovered that she had been so overly bred that her uterus was actually tearing from the inside out. I personally fostered Juniper each night to help her overcome her severe anxiety, which was brought on by her previous traumatic life as breeding stock. I also took in a chocolate lab at our facility who actually came from a breeding facility here in Winona County. The facility sold this dog to a convicted felon who then severely neglected him. This dog, who never had a name before entering our facility, I named Windsor. He was so desperate for food that he was eating blinds and acrylic nails that he found behind his cage. He was extremely emaciated when we took him in. This just shows how these facilities can impact the whole community. Shelters and rescue volunteers take in and care for these animals who are hurt and unwanted with no help from these breeders. Upon reading this update, I would also like to add that at our facility, we have an annual USDA kennel inspection. And these inspections revolve mostly around the structure and the way that we operate our facility, and very little on the actual welfare and care of the animals within it. So I please urge you to discuss this issue more in depth, and I hope that I can do them and so many others justice. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We have additional petitions, right? And I know there were two gentlemen online.
Is there anyone else here in the audience that would like to speak? Yeah, please come forward.
Put ones out for public.
My name is Robert Long, and I live at 351 Pleasant Hill Drive in Winona. And I just am here, didn't grow up with dogs myself. I was introduced to dogs later in life when I was married. I've enjoyed the company of dogs for many years at this point, and I want to express that I'm concerned about the state of the situation in Winona County and how I do support the idea of a moratorium on additional allowing for additional puppy mill activity, and also the regulatory environment needs to be reviewed to ensure that these animals are being well cared for.
Thanks. Is there anyone else here in the audience, or is there anyone on attending the meeting via Ring Central that would like to make a public comment? If so, could you unmute yourself and get our attention? Mr. McMillan?
Yes, good evening. My name is Dr. Frank McMillan, and my address is 5142 Gulfside Drive, Lebanon, Ohio. I'm a veterinarian who began my career in private practice, then became a clinical professor of medicine at the Western University College of Veterinary Medicine. Following that, I became a researcher at Best Friends Animal Society, studying psychological trauma in animals, publishing dozens of scientific papers and writing the textbook Mental Health and Wellbeing in Animals, now in its second edition. With the collaboration of the University of Pennsylvania, we conducted 2 large-scale studies of dogs from high-volume commercial breeding establishments, the adult breeding dogs as well as the puppies sold through pet stores. The evidence from these studies showed that these breeding facilities are highly injurious to both groups of dogs, resulting in severe, extensive, and long-term harm to the dog's psychological and behavioral well-being. The adult breeding dogs showed high levels of fears and phobias, compulsive and repetitive behaviors such as spinning in tight circles and pacing, as well as many other unusual and abnormal behaviors. Our results suggested that the mental harm occurs in modern, clean, and hygienic facilities, as well as those poorly maintained. We concluded that the current state and federal laws are inadequate to protect dogs from the psychological harm resulting from confinement in commercial breeding establishments. To close, I'd just like to note that the reason dogs suffer psychological damage in these breeding facilities is not a mystery. During domestication, dogs were selectively bred over the last 15,000 years to be not just social animals, but companion animals, which has created heightened psychological and emotional needs for social companionship. Quite simply, unlike many farm animal species, dogs are not and never have been production animals. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience or on the internet that would like to speak?
Bob Baker.
Please go ahead.
My name is Bob Baker. I've been involved in researching and investigating the commercial dog breeding industry since 1980. I visited over 1,000 USDA licensed facilities throughout the Midwest, including many in Minnesota. I'm currently the executive director of the Missouri Alliance for Animals, and I reside in Missouri. And I just want to emphasize that local government cannot rely on the U.S. Department of Agriculture to adequately enforce our animal welfare laws at these facilities. USDA's lax enforcement has been historic. It's been documented over the years by damning reports by their own Office of Inspector General and also by congressional oversight hearings and GAO reports. The most recent example of USDA's malfeasance was the adoption of 2 rules. One was the self-reporting rule, where if a breeder self-reported a violation, they couldn't be cited. And they also adopted a rule calling teachable moments, in which they called many violations just simply teachable moments, and they were kept off the official inspection report. Since the adoption of these rules, the number of citations at USDA licensed commercial dog breeding facilities decreased by 60%. Enforcement activities against unscrupulous breeders decreased by 90%. What was most scandalous about adopting these rules is they did them illegally. They did not go through the federal rulemaking process because they knew they could never get such outrageous rules through the rulemaking process. Then they went and instructed their inspectors to cite no documented deficiencies during the inspection, even though they were told to keep them on separate sheets. This is a violation of federal law. We've been fighting this for many, many years. I filed a lawsuit against USDA, and finally they had to stop self-reporting. And just recently, we hired a federal lobbyist who got them to stop this teachable moment, but they still don't have a real, true interest in enforcing the Animal Welfare Act. So I would really want to emphasize to the board, and I thank you for having these discussions, but I think you need to do more workshops and investigations and just, learn how efficient USDA oversight is of these commercial breeding facilities. And I would be glad to participate or help in any way possible. And again, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience or attending over the internet that would like to make a public comment? I will ask 2 more times. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Please step forward and tell us your name and address and go ahead.
My name is Alita Johnson, and my address is 104 Main Street, Winona, Minnesota. I have an apartment there, 116. And I also would like to speak on the dogs. It's just the puppy mills is just horrendous. And I don't know if you are aware of it, but when the mother dogs can no longer produce, they are euthanized or shot. And I don't have first-hand experience with a lot of the puppy mill information, but I've done a lot of research and I have a big compassion for animals. And it just really hurts that these little the stories I've heard tonight, I didn't hear previous, and how these pets are dying. It's just, well, it just really is moving because they are pets and they become like humans to us. And it's devastating to read and to hear and to see how they're treated. So I urge you to consider this and discuss it very seriously and possibly even ban the puppy mills. Thank you.
Is there anyone else either here in the audience or on the internet that would like to participate in the public comment period?
Hi, yes, I'm online.
Please proceed. Tell us your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Zach Eichten, and I'm the Minnesota State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. I'm participating remotely from Mounds View, Minnesota, where I live. I'm just here to offer my support as well for opening the discussion and an in-depth study for researching these puppy mills. And also the moratorium that was proposed earlier on any new facilities until an in-depth study can take place. Ultimately, the more information that we can have and in these discussions have will really make the entire discussion a lot more feasible to talk through what the county should be doing as far as enforcement and as far as facilities should be doing. And also making sure that public health and canine health experts in the field are on hand for those discussions as well. To that end, the Humane Society of the United States has experts in the puppy mills field. We'd be happy to help participate in any way that takes place. And we just want to make sure that you know that we are here as a resource for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience or attending over the internet that would like to make a public comment? I'm going to ask for the final time. Is there anyone else here in the audience or attending over Ring Central that would like to participate in the public comment period? Hearing none, public comment period is closed. We now move on to our regular agenda. Item 5 is approving of county board minutes.
So moved.
Second. Okay, Commissioner Olson has moved and Commissioner Kavesi has seconded to approve the county board minutes from August 9th of 2022. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Item 6 is acknowledging the receipt of approved committee minutes.
I move to accept, to acknowledge committee meeting minutes from the county board of August 9th.
We just did that.
Oh, excuse me,
April.
Economic Development Authority.
Second.
Commissioner Kavesi has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded, acknowledging receipt of the approved committee minutes, which are the EDA meeting minutes from April 28th of 2022. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. The next item is our consent comments and approval of agenda. Commissioner Ward.
Yes, thank you. I would like to, under consent business, pull items 8.1 and 8.4 and 8.5 for separate votes. Okay, please.
So we can make 8.1 7.0, 7.01 is 8.4, and 8.5 will be 7.02. 9. I do mean 9.
Okay,
Thanks for your help in counting.
not a problem.
Apparently I needed it. Okay, and did you say you have any announcements?
No,
No, okay.
thank you.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Nothing.
Okay, Commissioner Olson.
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Jacob.
Nothing additional from what Commissioner Ward already pulled.
I will have a request for board action on our working session. Okay. That is our agenda.
Move to approve the amended agenda.
Okay. Commissioner Ward has moved and Commissioner Kovesi has seconded approval of the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those who are in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. So next item would be consent business. And I always forget, do we read it first or approve it first? We read it first. Interim Administrator Holte, would you please read the consent business?
8.2, actually 8.1 has been pulled for further discussion. 8.2, approve temporary on-sale liquor license for Thesis Beer Projects. I hope I didn't mispronounce that. 8.3, approve updated burial policy. 8.4 has been pulled. 8.5 has been pulled. 8.6, confirm payment of disbursement.
Move to approve the consent business as read.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Jacob has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of the consent agenda as read. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those who in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, consent agenda is passed. So now we would be on to item 9.0.
So it is in our packet 8.1. It's approved settlement agreement for a parcel related to County Road 129 condemnation. This particular parcel was in question from the original work. It was unclear ownership and accessibility because we were dealing with state highway, county road, and I believe railroad. The issue did go to I'm going to say the Land Commission. Do I have that right? The Land Commission, which is part of a legal process and everything. And they determined that it was a much lower value than what we're trying to settle with today. And looking at the Land Commission is a normal process of handling these situations. The county did everything that we know of in the right order, in the right process to pay for project right away. The party disagreed, and the party unfortunately expended a lot of money, their own funds, without the county endorsing it. They had huge legal bills. They had an appraisal, a huge appraisal value, which was not just for that small parcel the county was dealing with. The way I read it, it was an appraisal of their whole farm. They had numerous surveys and expended a lot of funds. And now they're asking the taxpayers to pay for their expenses that they did on their own. The county didn't tell them to go ahead and, expend the resources and everything to make a settlement. And so I find it just wrong that we would agree to pay all their expenses for this parcel when the Land Commission did make a recommendation and based on all the facts that were present at the time. So I cannot support the settlement.
Yeah. So I have a couple of issues, I guess, both with, I agree with Commissioner Ward. The public has, we've been dealing with this in closed sessions, and the vote here tonight will be to vote on what has been discussed in the most recent closed session, but also the process of the public being aware of the $102,000 that the board intends to spend in this. It feels like to me, it feels like there's a step missing of the proper, putting this on the agenda properly, the public being able to know what the county board is doing, and then voting on it after that. So something feels out of step there. And with the actual dispute with the landowner, a large part of their dispute was operating a corn stand on the highway that was then displaced by the new road project. But ultimately, it turned out they never owned that property to begin with. So I don't understand a lot of the thrust of their argument that they're owed this money that they're demanding. So, and how it would be how it could possibly make it to consent business. Yeah, so at a minimum, maybe general business, but then also it feels like it's a month, a week ahead, or a meeting ahead.
Mr. Olson?
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the settlement agreement, and I'm gonna agree with Commissioner Ward and Commissioner Jacob, that it doesn't make sense, but our legal advisor, has showed us that this might make the most economic sense to do. And, continue legal, argument could far exceed the settlement agreement. So my motion is to approve it. And that it will become public, once that vote is taken, if it is upheld.
Okay, so Commissioner Olson has moved and Commissioner Kavesi has seconded. Approving item, which is now 9.0, approve settlement agreement for parcel ID 12.151.530 County Road 129 condemnation. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, we have discussed this numerous times in closed session. It will become public depending on which way the vote goes now. And we are following legal guidelines on that. It's a contested litigation. And if it would continue as a contested litigation, we would be assuming a far greater amount. We would be responsible for a far greater amount than the $100,000. So I'm in favor of our settlement agreement, and I look forward to it being made public.
Commissioner Jacob?
The statement just made by Commissioner Kavesi is not known whether we would be subject to a far greater amount. We could be subject to a much lower amount. So this is a somewhat of a gamble by this board that I would prefer that the courts played out. If this citizen has rights to way more, then I think they should get way more. And if the taxpayer has the rights to not have to pay them this $100,000, then I don't think the taxpayer should have to pay him the $100,000. So I feel this is the wrong method. This county board making this decision. This is a decision for the courts, and that would be the fair way for it to play out. So I'm going to not support the motion.
County Attorney Sonneman and then Commissioner Kavesi.
I just want to make sure that the record's clear before decision is made that the matter that's being referred to as the litigation here, or the contested proceeding, indeed is a condemnation proceeding that went to court, that is in court, is pending, and that's why I've made the advice I have to the board about the nature of this matter. It's different than other matters that might come before the board, such as contracts. And that court file number for the record of this proceeding is Winona County District Court file number 85 CV 19277, and the case type is condemnation. That is the contested litigation that's being referred to here. Thank you.
Yeah, I was basing my statement on the fact that even before we would be in trial, which is a gamble, and could go either way apparently, but we would have additional costs to prepare for that and additional legal issues to take on, staff time and those kinds of costs. So I believe it makes sense to settle at a lower amount.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Item 9.01, approve contract and business associate agreement with Evolve to aid completion of social media histories for children in foster care.
And this item, I think Ms. Sanis is online, and let's see, let me get to my place in the, yeah, it's got 203. A question of process. Who is doing this completion of the social medical histories for children in foster care
That would be
currently?
our county social workers.
Okay, so we are doing it. So it is internal county social workers. All right. And how many children does this involve
Well,
currently?
as I had provided in a summary to Ms. Holte, and I'm not sure if she shared the information or what, but we have to complete a social medical history for when a child hits that 6-month mark in foster care. I can't say that, it's going to be, so we currently have about 60 children in out-of-home placement, maybe a few more at this time. I can't say that it's going to be all 60 children that this would impact. Sometimes we reunify sooner. Sometimes, if we take an infant into care, it doesn't make sense to send their social medical history to an outside agency, as their social medical history is happening in real time right in front of us. But sometimes we do get kids that come into care that 14 years old, that maybe are from out of state, and we're collecting a lot of information from out of state agencies, schools, and maybe foster care placements, medical facilities, things like that. And it's a lot of information to be able to process. We're looking at a lot of those higher needs kids. These social medical histories are very, very time consuming. And one of the things that I'm trying to do within the Children and Family Services unit within Winona County is when we have, just because we can't triage our work, we have very structured, rigid timelines that have to be met. So if we have 16 cases that come in a week, we have to deal with the 16 cases. And so I'm looking for a way to divert some of the work out of the unit for when we have those situations. So social medical histories are one of those things that we can divert out of the unit. For instance, right now we have an opening in our Children and Family Services ongoing unit, which if we have this contract, we could divert some of that work out of the unit and reduce the amount of overtime that we're having to utilize within the unit. And then some of the benefits of that is, lowering staff burnout. So those are some of the reasons what we wanted to do. I mean, if the board wants to put a limit, within, from now until the end of 2022, that we can only refer up to 8 social medical histories, where I'm more than willing to work around that and then be able to provide you with additional information come January 1, if that would make you more comfortable.
Well, I don't disagree that medical histories, but I'm a little puzzled. It says social medical histories. What's the social part
that
of
would
that?
be, how long, where have they resided? Who are their relatives? Where have they gone to school? Have they been on IEPs? Have they, those types of things. What this document is a very large component when it comes to a termination of parental rights, and we are putting a child up for adoption. This is something that the child can come back to 20 years down the road and be able to access, to be able to see who are my biological parents, what happened, where am I, who are my relatives, do I have, siblings out there that I didn't know of, those types of things. So we want to make sure that we are doing a thorough job on these and make sure we're processing them appropriately.
So follow-up question then, is a social medical history protected by HIPAA?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't disagree that this is important, especially in adoption and adoptive parents knowing what a child has. I really have some issues though with the company. It was brought to my attention, Evolve Family Services. And if you just Google them very quickly, the first Google, and I'll just read, Evolve Family Services is committed to serving as an anti-racist and anti-oppressive organization. Evolve acknowledges that we work within a society and systems of care that are rooted in white supremacy and racism, which frequently results in the disparity outcomes of children and families of color. I'm sorry, this is one of those things that I have constituents contacting about is their social agenda platform. And if you go into their website, you find much more about it. They have, they're lobbying the Roe versus Wade. They've got white supremacy issues. They've got a lot of different things that I think we might be able to find a better, more neutral company to do a
Well, they are
contract
the only
with.
company in the state of Minnesota right now that is providing this service. So it
Can somebody from Iowa, Wisconsin, or I mean, and you did indicate in your email that, so Ramsey and Dakota County are using this firm. Is all the other counties, to your knowledge, just doing it in-house? They're not, there's no other software or company that
correct. They're
does
done
this?
in-house. Yes.
Who mandates it? The state, or is this a
State.
federal mandate? But there's only one company at $80 an hour that's doing the rate is $80 an hour.
That is
doing
correct.
this. Well, I cannot give an organization like this taxpayer money with this social agenda that's out front right on their Facebook or their Google search page.
Also,
Commissioner Ward, could you just read that back to me? Because I didn't do the Google research
That's
that
okay.
you did, but
And I wouldn't have, other than a constituent,
There.
directed me to.
She's
So
reading it right
Evolve
from their website.
acknowledges that we work within a society and systems of care that are rooted in white supremacy and racism, which frequently result in disparate outcomes for children and families of color.
Okay, so you have a problem with, I mean, you support white supremacy and racism, or you?
No, I support doing these social medical histories, but not a company that has this blatantly on their webpage and they have a social agenda to do their work. I would like somebody much more neutral. I mean, this is sensitive information that should be gathered and should be protected with HIPAA. And when an organization has this on their first page of their Google search, it raises some red flags to constituents that have contacted me. And then after I read this, I was very disturbed too.
Yeah, I can't support hiring a firm that, as you dig further into it, clearly they're pro-abortion. And to have political agendas attached right up front to, I mean, we just got done dealing with this with the Winona Advocacy Center. So to take on a new, I think we should just either table this or look for something different to let the community weigh in. This is just front and center on their website, a very blatant political agenda. And I mean, we should be looking for neutrality, not a group, not be funding a group that has a very clear political agenda.
So I would table it and ask staff to look for other resources to do this work, or continue to do it in-house if that is our only option. If every other county in the state of Minnesota is doing it in-house, there's a reason.
Is that a motion?
I move to table indefinitely.
A second?
Commissioner Ward has moved to table item 9.01 and Commissioner Jacob has seconded it. Is there further discussion?
I'm just having a little trouble understanding. You want something that's more neutral than being anti-white supremacy and anti-racism. And what the heck is more neutral than not supporting white supremacy and not being racist? I don't understand. I won't support the motion.
Yeah, I'm not in support of the motion. I don't know this particular company's research or their board decision-making, but it is known, and there is research that shows when children of color or indigenous children with foster care, that the first effort is to try to find a family that matches, okay? And if that's not possible, there has been evidence of racial trauma. This is a fact. It's not made up. So I'm not in support of the motion. I would like to continue.
The discussion on the motion to table? Mr. Jacob?
Well, I'm very surprised that both Commissioner Olson and Commissioner Kavesi are essentially admitting that you haven't looked into this group, you haven't read this website, and you're willing to push it through. I mean, the sensible thing to do is to just table it, look into the situation more thoroughly, and then if you decide that it's a good solution, we'll vote on it later. There's not a sense of urgency here. So, I mean, there's a political agenda with this group. There very clearly is.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
It's just to table.
Table.
The table, aye.
Let's do it over.
Okay.
Okay, the motion is to table. It was made by
indefinitely.
Commissioner Ward and seconded by Commissioner Jacob. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Nay. Okay, motion does not carry.
So Commissioner Jacob, if I could just add, the motion was to table indefinitely. I did not support that. I would like to have more research. And anybody can do a web search and you can, I mean, if you want to believe everything on the internet, you can certainly do that too. But I would ask that our Director Sanis provide us with some more information. I'll do that as a motion. I'll table until Karen Sanis can provide us with additional information.
A second.
Commissioner Ward?
I don't feel that the motion is necessary because with tabling it indefinitely and with the discussion here, I think Ms. Sanis knows that, you know, more information is needed. And so I find it redundant that you were telling her to go do more research. Again, the concept of all this hidden agendas and ulterior motives in our work, it shouldn't have to exist in our work. This is gathering information on kids in foster care. It shouldn't be an organization that talks about white supremacy and racism right from the get-go, an anti-racist and anti-oppressive organization. I find it hard to believe that there's nobody else compiling this information with all the, you know, the tools we have with, you know, software and everything. I just think there's got to be other ways to do it. And I won't support the motion, but if Ms. Sanis can find more information or find another company, that was the goal.
Yeah, I can support the motion to table. I think the concern Commissioner Olson had was to table indefinitely, which meant you really weren't looking for a solution. I think to table says, and I don't know if the suggestion that you don't know if you want to believe everything you see or read on the internet, this is front and center on their website, Evolve. I mean, you click in Evolve and this is what comes up immediately. This is their own advertising. So I feel like more research is needed, so I'll support the motion to table and try to find a solution.
And I wasn't necessarily against anti-white supremacy and anti-racism. Apparently, some people are.
Is there
Well,
further?
it's
Yes.
So it's
Commissioner
just
Ward.
bringing up a social issue that I don't feel that county government should, we're trying to take care of foster kids. We shouldn't have to get into the socialization, the political, you know, theories of organizations and the hidden agendas of organizations. We shouldn't have to be going down that path. We shouldn't even have to have this kind of discussion at a county board level doing work for foster kids. And it continually creeps into so many things that we're doing in society today. That's the angst I have with this.
Mr. Vesey.
Yeah, the difference, I think, is that we know these issues can cause racial trauma or trauma in general for these children. Foster children are in enough difficulty in terms of their situations and their social acceptance and their acceptance of themselves. But this is researched. So to say that this organization will work to undo some of the effects of racial trauma is a positive thing. So that's why I'm in favor of continuing with this discussion.
So as the chair speaks last, but I would like to speak, I think Commissioner Convessi has made some very important points. When I recently attended a movie at Winona State about adult adverse childhood experiences, you know, the experience of racism is one of those, and it leads to real social differences in people's lives. They had a situation in which they were looking at folks who were in jail, and they asked them the questions about the experiences, and many of them had experienced at least 6 out of the 10. So there are big consequences for adverse experiences, and racism is one of them. So it is an important acknowledgement on the part of this organization, and is important, I think, to be included in the social medical histories of kids that are in foster care. So Commissioner Ward.
And I'm not denying that is important information, but for an organization to be as bold and such. But here under funding, okay, so I am a little questioning it says the funding, this is page 203. The funding will be tax levy, but due to reduction in hours with another contracted vendor, there will be no increase in levy funding. So who's the other contracted vendor?
No.
No, I'm not, it sounds like somebody else was doing it and they're reducing their hours.
Some clarification, please?
Let's let Director
Thank you,
Spano speak.
Madam Chair. When Hiawatha Valley became a certified community behavior health clinic, we had a significant reduction in the amount of money that we were paying for child mental health case management. We have to pay the non-federal share of the TCM that Hiawatha Valley receives. So there was a significant reduction in that. So I wanted to repurpose those dollars, that savings, into other services within the community. So that is what that is. It was not an agency that does social medical histories.
So point of clarification, you're saying Hiawatha Valley Mental Health does not do these? I'm confused. It sounded like they did, but they don't now.
No, they did so when we were contracted with them to do children's mental health case management. When they became a certified community behavior health clinic, there was no longer a need for that contract. Therefore, Winona County Health and Human Services no longer needed to pay the non-federal share of the TCM, or there was a significant reduction in our responsibility for paying the non-federal share. So there was a cost savings. And so I wanted to repurpose that cost savings that we experienced with Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center, and then put it into additional services to support our staff with Evolve doing social medical histories.
Okay, so not every child that is in foster system has contact with Hiawatha Valley Mental Health.
Nope.
No, so they wouldn't have a file. They would only maybe have a file on foster children that are dealing with mental health issues. The lights just went out in the audience area.
So, and this is why this is so complex. So this is so Hiawatha Valley is completely separate. With Hiawatha Valley, with Winona County no longer needing to contract with Hiawatha Valley to do children's mental health. So Hiawatha Valley still does children's mental health, but that changed when they became a certified community behavior health hospital, our clinic. So then there was a cost savings to the county due to that change. We are going to take that cost savings and put that towards additional services to support the Children and Family Services Unit. That is what I am trying to explain. And just so that, like Hiawatha Valley is a completely separate service. I'm going to take that cost savings and I'm going to put it towards something else.
So what kind of dollars are we talking about cost saving? You refer to cost saving. How many dollars are
I'm
we
not
talking about?
100% sure. We're still trying to track. It's a pretty significant. And I don't remember when we did our budget how much we had reduced that the TCM for. It's I know the GL code and there has been a significant drop in the amount of the use of the funds in 2022 due to that change.
Okay, with the idea that it's a cost saving and we need somebody to do this work, what's the qualifications of a person to do? We may have somebody right here in our own community that could do these for us on a case by case thing versus hiring a agency. What's the qualifications of somebody doing a, social medical history?
There isn't really qualifications for an individual, but there are specifics within the contract, like workman's comp insurance, like liability insurance, just different things like that, and then they assume also responsibility if there's a data breach, that type of stuff. So that's why I wanted to go with a more formalized agency, because to mitigate that risk and liability.
But it would be possible to do a contract with an individual locally. If with this conversation, maybe we've spurred somebody's interest in an entrepreneurial position.
Sure.
Okay.
Now the lights in the hall have gone up.
We're saving.
Yeah.
We're trying to save money, folks.
The budget issue.
Is there,
Okay.
Not like we want to keep the public in the dark.
is there any further discussion on this particular topic?
I'm unclear what the motion is that we're going to.
Okay,
Table it.
the motion is to table it. Yep, and to ask Director Sanis to bring us some additional information. Is there any further discussion?
Let there be light.
Hearing none. With those in favor of the motion to table and have it come back with some additional information, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. This would bring us to 9.02, approve the LELS 61 labor agreement for 2022.
This would be much shorter. Again, it's another labor agreement, and it's an opportunity to have the discussion for pay for performance, but I see nothing in this agreement, so I will not support the contract. For you, the union, union contract, I guess.
Motion to approve labor agreement, LES 61.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Olson has moved and Commissioner Kavesi has seconded approving of item 9.02, approve LELS 61 labor agreement for 2022. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries. We now move on to item 9.1. Receive the monthly finance and budget update for 2022.
I'll be providing the update for June of 2022. The beginning cash is 9.1, actual revenues are 7 million, actual expenses for 1.4, ending cash in the general fund was 14.7. For the whole year of the general fund, it was 14.8 was the actual starting. Actual revenues were 10 million. Expenses were 10 million.1, ending cash is 14.7. The variance this year is a negative 38,000 compared to a negative 576 for all the funds being displayed. It's a positive 163 compared to a negative 1.4. I do want to also mention that the Human Services Fund is actually at a negative 178 at this point. And you can see that they're actually doing better than last year. Any questions on this document? Then we'll go to the summary budget. Cash starts out at $19 million. Actual revenues are 21.2. Actual expenses were 21.4. Ending cash is 18.9. Variance is the negative 134 compared to 1.4. Any questions on this document? If not, we can go to the summary budget. Summary budget, we're displaying the information through June. And I guess the one thing I did forget to mention is that the revenues were a lot higher in June because we had the settlement of the taxes. So we're 50% of the way through the budget. And if you're looking at all the departments that are being displayed, none of them are actually over the 50% for the expenses at this point. And I also do always talk about the interest. We're budgeting 180. At this point, we're at 31,000. So we are low at the interest of it, only 18%. Any questions?
It's looking up, though. The Fed keeps raising the rates. Maybe we'll get back to the good old days someday, huh?
Yeah.
They keep raising them.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. I think we could have a brief recess.
Thank you.
I guess I'll do the gavel, man. We're having a recess.
Well, we got light.
Yeah, like,
I will press on while we have light.
proceed with item 9.2, discuss dog breeding facilities. I think it's at the will of the board. I believe that Director Qualley has prepared, she has a presentation for us. Is that right? The board's wish to.
Madam Chair and County Commissioners. So the presentation that was prepared by our department staff is in your packet. And it includes two presentations by the USDA and the Minnesota Board of Animal Health that last fall were presented to the Minnesota zoning administrators as a whole. So that is the guidelines to the entire zoning world in Minnesota counties. In addition, you received today a commercial dog and cat breeder inspection standard list from the Board of Animal Health. And veterinarian Dr. Veronica Brosh from the Board of Animal Health is on the Ring Central tonight. And of course, you know, neither of us have things prepared. This is not a working session. However, she is available and had kindly agreed to attend. In addition, you received today from Assistant County Attorney Nuttall the state and county role and authorities regarding dog breeding facilities for your review. So I'm at your disposal if I can be of any help in the discussion. Dr. Veronica Brosh, sorry, I'm butchering your name. Maybe you can help me out here.
Yeah, it's Barch. Like
Barch.
March.
Okay, thank you. That's much better. In the event that there are questions about the staff inspections and the framework in which they operate.
Awesome.
As far as the, you kind of gave us a PowerPoint slide or what you have in the packet. Do you have that available? Oh, for on screen or no?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't have the permission of the authors of those PowerPoints. They're not my PowerPoints. This is information that has been used to train county zoning and planning staff around the state as recently as last fall. So we received these presentations in Austin, Minnesota from both the Board of Animal Health regarding licensing and inspection of commercial cat and dog breeders. And some of the information was in the cat and dog breeder manual, which is on the website for the Board of Animal Health, which all of you received a hard copy of last year.
So anybody can look at this, but we can't have the slides on the screen?
Well, again, I didn't receive permission from either of the authors of those PowerPoint presentations to put them on the screen. I was unaware that they were actually going to be in the packet. So I apologize for that. But it is out in the public realm now. So, and if there's any questions about the Board of Animal Health version, I did make sure that the packet was sent. They have switched divisions recently. So the actual presenter, Courtney Wheeler, Dr. Wheeler, the senior veterinarian at the Board of Animal Health, has switched to the cattle division. But Dr. Barch was kind enough to come tonight.
Just for one additional question, if I may. And I know it's spelled out in the email that we got from Stephanie Nuttall as far as the legal terms of it, but give me the outline of, so Winona County zoning is the land use part of it. Board of Animal Health is the licensing authority for what portion of it?
So they provide inspections and they license commercial dog and cat breeders.
State level.
Yeah.
Then-
Dr. Barsh, do you want to answer that question? Because I really shouldn't be speaking on behalf of your
Just wait,
organization.
one more question.
Oh,
Then there's
sorry.
one third entity, isn't it? USDA?
Yes.
And what is their role?
Again, I refer to Dr. Barsh because she has more familiarity with that. I just butchered that word.
So commercial dog and cat breeders can be licensed on both the state and the federal level, depending on number of animals that they have and the way that they sell those animals. So one breeder can have two licenses, one with the state, one with USDA.
And if they sell over state lines, for instance, then would the USDA be more impacted than your organization or your brother?
The USDA is mainly if they sell off-site. So if they're having, they sell puppies and kittens to people that then go and distribute them. So to brokers or to pet stores. If the buyer of the dog or cat is not on site, then the USDA must license them as well.
I do have a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I know that we had a request, a conditional use permit that came in front of us a year or two ago from an individual who he already had one and was having a second one because he was going to split this parcel. And we discovered in the course of that conversation that he hadn't applied for his other permits, which meant then no animal welfare checks had ever taken place. And we had a conversation about that at the board meeting with a request, I think, from Commissioner Olson, that the county should be verifying that individuals actually do that on an annual basis. Isn't that right? And I'm wondering where that went.
Okay, so Madam Chair and Commissioners, so at the end of that meeting, it was requested that we verify when the Board of Animal Health has sent animal units, the numbers of adults and puppies from each breeder, that we get a copy of it. And therefore, it identifies two things, whether or not conditions in the conditional use permit as far as numbers of dogs are being met, which would be part of something that this body approved and that we could then verify. And it also would identify if there is someone who isn't on the radar of the Board of Animal Health. So I thought that those two things would satisfy the request from the board. And so at the end of this year, Planner Olivia Strainsky from our department will take a leadership role in getting a letter out to those that have conditional use permits, requesting that information be duplicated and sent out. Since they're having to generate it anyway, is my understanding for the Board of Animal Health. Is that I don't want to misspeak again.
Yes, so anyone who has a commercial breeding license with the state submits an annual report that does give census numbers for adult and juvenile animals. At the time of that report, it also identifies how many animals were sold and then how many animals died or were euthanized during the fiscal year.
So we are going to proceed to enact that. My second question was in the
To request that.
Yes.
Yes, we will.
Thanks.
We
My
were
sec-
planning to follow through. Yes.
Super. Okay. My second request really has to do with the opinion that we got from our Assistant County Attorney Nuttall today. And she cites several cases, and it is making the case for us as commissioners that our purview is land use, and that other bodies are in charge of animal welfare. But when I read the wording of the cases, what it says is it's not the board's responsibility, or it's not the county board's duty. My question is, can the county board do more if it so chooses?
Short answer is yes, you can do more if you choose. I haven't found anything thus far that says you can't. To be fair, this process was started, I think, late last week.
Okay.
So I did do several days of research, but it may not have been fully comprehensive, and I'll let you know if that does change. You can. The real question is if there's already two entities that are doing this. According to the staff report put together by the planning department, both the USDA and the Board of Animal Health are both involved in animal welfare investigations. So is it redundant and worth the county's time and funding to duplicate those efforts, particularly when you start getting into whether or not the ordinances are similar to the statutes and how we want to go about doing that. So it is an option, but it's not necessarily your duty or responsibility to incorporate that as part of our land use decisions.
Thank you. Commissioner Kavesi?
Yeah, I know it's almost it's a common factor that the planning commission usually puts a condition that says the owner will comply with all applicable state and federal blah, blah, blah. And, I think that actually protects us. But now that in this case, or with this issue, we seem to be splitting. This group has responsibility for land use, this group for animal health and welfare, and this group also for animal health and welfare with other conditions that they check on. So how does Winona County check to verify that the owner is complying with all applicable state and federal regulations? And is Winona County responsible if they do not meet those state and federal regulations?
So there's a couple things with that. One is we can, I believe on the website, it's public information. If there's been violations, we can go in and look. So we can see if that's there. We can also require landowners to provide us with documents if they've been found in violation. We could start adding that as a condition. Or if there are violations, we are obligate them to turn that over to us just so that we can verify it. Even if we find out they didn't, that's yet another reason that we can address their conditional use permit. As far as county liability, if we don't, that I can't answer right now. I need to do some additional research on it. But I mean, the short answer is it's like every other permit. It's not just associated with dog kennels. If we find out that there's been a violation of ordinances or statutes, we can pursue it based on that requirement that they comply with those laws. If we don't find out, it's difficult to actually dig in, and we don't necessarily need to be the ones investigating whether they have violated the laws. We just need to know if they have or haven't. And that's where relying on the Board of Animal Health or the USDA and any violations there gives us that information without us having to have trained staff on animal welfare.
I understand. So we rely on the Board of Animal Health and the USDA inspections to let us know if there are violations on those state and federal regulations that they're supposed to be in compliance with.
They don't necessarily notify us. We would have to be requesting information or obtaining that.
Okay,
So it's not them telling us, it's us seeking
Okay.
that information out. The
So-
other place that we could potentially be getting information is through law enforcement if there are investigations into animal maltreatment
Right.
and those kinds of complaints as well. Because they
Okay.
do have some responsibilities there.
So Winona County staff are checking before they go out for whatever, to update the CUP or to check on the regulations that we have imposed. They are checking with the Board of Animal Health and USDA for, so,
I'm sorry, Commissioner and Madam Chair and commissioners. So we don't go out and check on the conditions of any CUP or IUP unless there's an actual complaint. That would be impossible.
Yeah.
Decades of CUPs. And I just wanted to point out one other quick thing, and it was something that I have been at the podium in the past when this topic has come up. We do not go and check to see if every building, we make sure that the dimensional standards have been met via a development certificate and a certificate of compliance, and we do that for animal kennels as well. But what happens inside as far as, the construction to state building codes, we're not an assigned county. We do not inspect to ensure, but every single CUP, as Councilor Noel has explained, has the language that state and national standards must be observed. And it is expected that personal responsibility of the petitioner be applied here. So is everybody following every one of the rules in the state of Minnesota and the US for every petition? I doubt it, but we try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And yet, if there are complaints, then we try to follow up. And if it's the purview of an agency that, work like the other agencies do as colleagues with us, from county level to state level, we attempt to do that. Thank you.
Commissioner Grassi?
I'm sorry, this is a complex issue. So we could draft stricter regulations in terms of animal health or welfare, but then we would have to monitor for that.
Potentially, depends on
Yeah.
how you drafted them, but yes, if you had ordinances that said these are in place, then we would be responsible for enforcing those.
Okay.
As it is right now, we've got law enforcement and the Board of Animal Health and the USDA to enforce the regulations that are already existing.
But if we feel that those regulations are not sufficient to cover animal health to our terms, then we would have to cover that. So that would mean more staff and more trained staff or contracts with veterinarians or whatever. So the other part is, and it's already been mentioned, that we rely on the businesses themselves to self-monitor and to run a clean and healthy environment, which we know happens sometimes and obviously doesn't happen other times. So it just seems to me that what we need to fall back on is our values of how we regard the physical conditions for our animals, and to what level we're willing to take that on or review, the whole business. I'm not sure, but so I would be in support of a study to look into some of those issues of possibly stricter regulations with the cost factor associated with that, and see if the citizens are willing to take on additional tax revenues in order to support this part of the business, or to take a serious look at the business in general, whether we want to be involved or not.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Kavesi, if I'm understanding correctly, we're only talking about then certain kinds of animals that we would be looking at the welfare thereof. We have many, many businesses in the production of animals, such as turkey production and dairy cows and so on, cattle production. Healthy animals in the best interest of the owner of the facility and the business person. We do not inspect with our feedlot officer, Carly McGinty, who is on, by the way, along with Olivia Strinsky, for health. Now, of course, Carly, in the execution of her duties, should she see something, associated with the maltreatment of animals, would certainly work with our state of Minnesota partners at the Board of Animal Health to let them know that an inspection might be needed, kind of thing. So I guess that would be a question for the board, is we're singling out the health of certain animals, but not other animals. And I think the planning staff would like direction if that's the case.
Yeah, I'm separating out, there are animals that are raised for meat production, and they certainly have to be healthy, and they are reviewed under those conditions. These animals are raised for pets, which to me is a distinction. So whether you want to talk about bird kennels, whatever they would be called, any animal that's raised for distribution as a pet, is what I'm talking about right here. Whether it's a dog kennel, cat kennel, bird kennel, I don't know, lizards, hamsters,
rats.
But so far, we don't have those other businesses. But
I suppose we did when I was a kid.
And of course, the Board of Animal Health has different divisions.
I had
Oh,
sheep
sorry,
as a pet when we lived in New Zealand.
Production animals can be pets.
They can be pets, but if they're not sold for pets, then that's my distinction right now. We had pet sheep and we returned them to the farmer. So that was a very nice pet. It was like a temporary pet. But
You don't know what happened to that sheep.
well, he became one of 50,000 in New Zealand. So there you go. But lost my train of thought. But if we wanted to look into some of the regulations that we have, we could look at things like staff requirements, that if a person has X number of animals, they'd be required to have X number of staff. And that there be perhaps training required for these staff so that they could be so that they could look for early signs of disease, whether the pet is off its feed or, things like that. So, that would be something minor that possibly could improve the animal health for these pets in the kennels. But that's getting way ahead. I was just trying to give an example.
So the site inspection information that was kindly provided by the Board of Animal Health, inspection standards was sent out, and perhaps you even have hard copies of it. So I apologize, it was hot off the press, but I did ask Dr. Barsh to attend tonight just as a preliminary, answer a few questions kind of thing, and she did provide this for us, covering such things as lighting, ventilation, and you can high spot through the document, but the fairly rigorous amount of information in it, I thought was very much appreciated and quite useful. Dr. Barch, I hope you don't mind, on behalf of the commissioners, if I could just finish the thought about the different divisions of inspections, because again, I don't want to misspeak about your organization. Thank you.
Mr. Olson.
Question for Ms. Barsh. I guess we've been told in the past, or maybe that was my understanding, that the actual inspections, if violations are found, that they are private, not public data, that you will not provide those to the county, you will not provide those to a county board. They just don't exist, I guess, except in a file hidden in the basement. Or can you explain that or elaborate?
Yeah, so the results of the investigations are classified as private, non-public data under Minnesota statute. However, people can submit a data request to the Board of Animal Health, and it's our discretion to release that information to law enforcement, municipalities, counties, and certainly, some private individuals, if we feel that that would be necessary to improve animal health or public health. So certainly the county could ask the Board of Animal Health for a list of any violations or compliance actions that have been taken against commercial breeders, and that would be provided.
And just as a follow-up question, are you witnessing increased pressure politically from the public over non-livestock animal breeding facilities, non-livestock? Meeting the official definition of livestock, which puppies wouldn't, but.
Which culture are you talking about? We're a very diverse culture in this country.
If you want to eat your dogs, you're fully welcome, but.
There is a culture that does.
I wanted to hear the answer, pardon me.
So, certainly there may be, political pressure or, public opinion, but we simply follow the statutes that are part of Minnesota law. And then we work within that law to ensure that, it's followed to the best of our ability. So we don't really base what we do on public opinion or political pressure.
I just asked if you were witnessing that, in which you indicated the affirmative. So can you raise dogs for human consumption in Minnesota? I just want to address Commissioner Ward's assertion that you can.
No, I didn't say they can't. There are society parts that do consume dog. So it depends on what part of society you're trying to regulate.
Can you?
And the statute that we're working with right now is specifically for people that are breeding animals to be sold as pets.
Okay, thank you. I guess this would be a question for Stephanie. Okay, so we have land use regulations that we govern. And we have, we've heard from the public, we've heard from veterinarians, we've heard from the Board of Animal Health that perhaps the social damage done to some of these pets that are breeding, are being bred and distributed is not a good thing. Can a county prohibit, and what would it take? Let's say a county wanted to prohibit the additional or increase or addition new permitting dog breeding facilities. Can they do that?
Can you say we're not going to allow those?
Grandfather, what's here?
Right. So essentially it would be an amendment to the zoning ordinance to remove dog kennels from conditional uses and any other associated definitions that would make the rest of them legal non-conforming uses. They would still be in existence until they were not. But theoretically, you could amend the zoning ordinance to disallow those.
And my next follow-up question would be, what is the process to amend the zoning ordinance?
The same as every other time we've amended the zoning ordinance, which is you have the county board would have, well, one of the ways you could do it is the county board could tell the planning commission, basically initiate an ordinance amendment, tell the planning commission that that's what you want to do. The planning commission would hold a public hearing on that topic. And then we'd probably put some draft language together for that amendment. The public hearing would be held. The planning commission would make its recommendation to the county board. The county board could hold a public hearing and then make a decision on whether or not to amend the zoning ordinance as proposed or to revise it or however you saw fit.
Question.
Are you done? Oh, Commissioner Ward.
I have a question. So are we assuming that it's just dog breeders? There's a lot of people who own dogs and maybe they have 1 or 2 or 3 in their household that I know aren't always taken care of the best. So how are we going to regulate small family operations of dogs. People who have one dog and they decide that, I've heard a lot of people decide to have that dog have at least 1 or 2 litters of puppies and then they retire. So are we going to restrict, or are we going to include that type of operation in potentially inspections and social well-being of the animal and such? Where would we draw the line? If it's your own home and you've got 1 or 2, or is it 3 or 4, or where's the distinction?
Currently, our definition is 4 or more dogs over 4 months of age for the sale, breeding, or profit that are kept for 6 months or more. That's where our line is currently in this.
So if you had 3 dogs in your house, but you weren't taking care of them properly, and you
could still be dealing with animal maltreatment.
Yes, you could. Right.
You
yes.
just wouldn't be considered a dog kennel.
Kennel, a breeding. Okay. Right. A fine line there.
Yeah, but it's at least a clear one.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Unlike many of the lines we have in the law.
That's right. And then a follow up then, if Winona County would want to do this, we would assume a huge amount of liability with inspections and it was said earlier, animal welfare. Do we have animal welfare expertise? And if we would start doing more restrictions instead of using the other agencies that are tasked with this, with our numerous amount of ordinances or statutes, laws, and regulations, we would be assuming that liability.
If we create additional laws, we would then be responsible for enforcing those.
Right. Okay.
And just if I could just add to that. So while I was searching the website because of the Board of Animal Health, because I misspelled Dr. Barsh's name in the first email I sent her, besides butchering it regularly tonight. The first 4 or 5 names that I ran into had Doctor of Veterinary Science as their initials, and not planner or AICP. So, these are trained, medically trained in the veterinary sciences.
Do we have any doctors of electricity?
Right. I can't get the lights in my office to shut off.
Luckily, we have Heidi.
This is something new, by the way.
Yes.
As we mentioned, it's a cost saving measure, yes.
Heidi and Pat.
Mr. Ward.
And so with Commissioner Olson's concern of the public pressure on our state agencies and federal agencies, all state statutes and everything are created by our state legislators. And though those bodies could change their statutes and their regulations and their guidance to the Animal Board of Health and the United States Department of Agriculture. If there is a huge uproar from the public that they want more, and I've always been of the opinion of having a uniform, so somebody in Houston County or Olmsted County or we're all working under, basically the same guidance as our state statutes. We start picking and choosing and monitoring and changing. I think that sets us up for a lot of responsibilities. As Ms. Qualia said, we don't have the staff to do those things. We don't have the levy dollars, as Commissioner Kavesi's inferring that it would require additional levy dollars to support those functions. And it would open up a whole new realm of responsibility for county staff. Am I correct? I think that's the feeling I got from both of you. Okay.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Ward, one of the reasons why the zoning administrators ask for training in spring and fall on a variety of topics is so that we are all on the same page, and also that we can cross-pollinate our own experiences in each county to try to, jumpstart so we're not reinventing the wheel, and also to find out, is there a big hue and cry of complaints? Is a lot of the information anecdotal? Is it strictly animal welfare? Are we talking about the physical structures failing that we have permitted? And so I think, based on testimony over the last several years and advocacy through nonprofits, welfare of the animals is rising to the top entirely. And with an agency that is the Board of Animal Health, it speaks very clearly to, the roles and responsibilities that Assistant County Attorney Nuttall illustrated in her memo.
And if you look at our inspection standards, we do pull from not only the commercial dog and cat breeder statutes, but also the statutes for the cruelty to animals and the Pet and Companion Animal Welfare Act. So in our inspection standards, we do address not only, the physical structures that the animals are housed in, but health, sanitation, well-being of those animals as well.
Mr. Olson?
And Ms. Barsh, in your professional opinion, not your agency's opinion, but your own personal professional opinion, do you feel that the socialization of these animals that are held in these facilities and bred in these facilities and distributed are adequately attended to?
I think it depends on the individual facility. The ones that I have visited in Winona County, and I've been to 2 of the 9 that we license, I saw nothing but healthy, happy dogs, to be perfectly honest.
In Ms. Nuttall's memo here, it says, the Board of Animal Health was established and given the power to protect the health of domestic animals. And let's see, I'm reading. The members of the Board of Animal Health are appointed by the governor. So, it is, if there is political public pressure, then contact the governor. He is the one that appoints these people to this board, and he should be held responsible if there's issues. It is something that's highly regulated. If you look who's on there, it's veterinarians and commissioners of agriculture and natural resources, dean of college veterinary medicine, director of veterinary diagnostic laboratory. It's very qualified people, and I would think they are compassionate people to serve in that capacity. But I guess if members of the public don't feel it's tight enough, then maybe we need to go to the governor, and it becomes a statewide, not just a Winona County issue.
State or federal.
Yeah, state or federal.
That's where the health is enforced from. That's where it should be addressed at.
And I understand all that, but we always advocate for local control. And earlier you mentioned this social agenda of different organizations. And what is the social agenda of Winona County? Our dog breeding facilities for that number of animals, are we okay with that? And I would like to bring that question to the Planning Commission and let it work through the process. I let Winona County speak through a public hearing process, we are hearing it, I'm hearing it. We got people giving us petitions. We can say no more, or we can say nothing and let it continue. But without going through the process, and I will support the Planning Commission process, and I would like to see it go that way. And in the meantime, I'd like to say, in the meantime, no more until that decision is made, and present a moratorium that we do not allow the expansion or addition of more dog breeding facilities in Winona County.
Sounds like a motion to me.
I will do that as a motion.
May I make a suggestion? Depending on how in-depth of a discussion and an analysis of our zoning ordinance you want, I would suggest you not direct the Planning Commission to make a zoning ordinance change, but rather to consider one, because that way it doesn't trigger our timelines that would be associated.
kind of thought that's what I said. is
Just
we
making
go-
sure it
we
was
go
clear, because
through
what
a
I
public
had.
Hearing process
Yep.
and
What I had explained before would put us on a, I believe, 60-day timeline of you tell them you want to get rid of dog kennels, and then we amend the ordinance and go through the process on that. If you're just asking them to look at it and make a recommendation as to whether or not, and then we can do it that way and have a little more time to.
I would like the more time and I would like the public process to be involved with the public hearing because I know what I'm hearing. And if the public supports it, and I serve at the will of the public, so.
Thank you for the clarification. We will work on that.
I would second that motion. Thank you for expressing it so well.
Is there any limitation on how long, I mean, if the vote is to start a moratorium, how long a moratorium can exist before? Is there some?
There is, and
So, I mean, aren't they really starting a process by making that vote?
if there's a moratorium, I believe, and Karen can probably correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think it's a year that we have.
We did that with the Philippa stand.
Yeah, we can have up to a year.
But I think we need to check that ordinance because the legislature did make some changes to the.
Yeah, we would have to go back and review that. That's what it was last time, I think, but we could come back with additional law on how we can enact a moratorium if that's the desire.
Commissioner Ward?
So with Commissioner Kavetsky's comments earlier, what about the cats and the birds and the reptiles and such? Is this only dogs? Are we singling out just dogs?
Hear my motion?
I think.
Well, we're discriminating, so.
Oh, you're all for that, apparently.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to be fair and equitable to people that, you know.
I'm sorry.
I visited, back in the day, I visited, I think multiple, I mean, it was 6 or 7 of those permits that came in at that one time that started this whole discussion. And it was a cold, I think it was December, January. It was a cold, bitter night. And you know what? I would have rather stayed in one of those puppy mill facilities because it was warmer than my house I was going back to. I mean, they were very nice, well kept, and the doctor has visited, and what I observed at the time, they were very well taken care of and very, very happy. So I guess I don't see the need to do a moratorium. And again, you said you're hearing from many people. Now, I'm not sure where this came from. There's no editor or anything, but it's a pretty small list of Winona County people and a very large list of outside Winona County people. So I don't know where this came from. I guess I would like clarification of all these people that are concerned about this. But, I see, limited names, and I'm not sure where.
I believe Animal Folk has been working with these groups.
There's a website.
Commissioner Kavetsky, you?
Yeah, I just had some comments that I think we're talking about facilities breeding for pets.
Right.
So what direction that goes, if right now we want to address it to dogs and cats, which are some of the businesses we currently have, later we could open it to birds and lizards or whatever.
Just to clarify, Commissioner Olson, your motion really is about dog breeding facilities.
It is.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
Non-livestock.
Yeah, and I'm in favor of this motion. I think it brings in the right amount of deliberation with us to make some recommendations or some suggestions to the Planning Commission that they can then consider and amend, adjust, or whatever based on their feelings and their research, and also a public hearing, and bring it back to us, and we'll have another public hearing. So I'm in favor of that process.
Is there more discussion? Commissioner Ward, and then Commissioner Jacob.
Dr. Barch said, I think there were no violations in Winona County. Is that?
So in the last 2 years, there were 2 violations, and they both were administrative. So late payment, late submission of forms.
Okay. It was no animal cruelty or anything. It was paperwork. Okay.
That was Commissioner Jacob, I think, and then Commissioner Kavetsky.
I am not going to support the motion, and it's based on this county board's general philosophy of already a mining ban, already a large dairy ban, already largely a building in many areas of the county ban. Ban after ban after ban sets the precedence that, do you want to move to Winona County and be an entrepreneur? Probably not, because there's a very good chance that whoever doesn't like what you're doing is going to pipe up and ban your business. So in the interest of what's best for the county as a whole, the more businesses that we put a stop to, the more the tax burden has to be carried by the remaining citizens of the county. So I'm not going to support a moratorium if there's concerns with animal health, safety, and welfare. I've visited all these facilities, and quite frankly, they're run very well, and they're providing a valuable service. Some people are not. They want a purebred animal for specific purposes, and they might need it for, it could be a specific purpose that particular breed of animal can provide, and that's important. I'm also aware of something that I learned through the process back when we permitted those 6 dog kennels at one time, about a black market of dogs that were being produced in Puerto Rico and other areas. And if the market, the legitimate, well-run, managed market, where all the inspections are taking place, if those places aren't providing the animals, then they're coming through a black market, which was really everything that you don't want to see. So I'm aware of that happening too. I'm not going to support the motion.
Commissioner Kavesi next, and then Commissioner Ward.
I just wanted to recall my own personal visit. I was very new as a commissioner, and we were in the process of kind of catching up, as I understood it. We had several facilities that had not been licensed or permitted that had not been permitted by the county. So somehow we found out about these, and we opened it up, and we started the CUP process with those facilities. And we did go out in December or January. At one facility, I recall, we went through the ground floor and everything looked good. And the stairs to the second floor were outside, and they were icy, and because they hadn't been shoveled. And the person taking us on the tour said, "You don't really want to go up there, do you?" And of course, another commissioner and I immediately said we did. And when we got up there, we saw a different story. And the back half of the room was like our back half when the lights go out. Only I don't know if there was a timer. But I mean, there were several things that were red flags, and we both kind of looked at each other. Now, following up, there were changes made to that facility through the CUP process, and there were many changes made to that particular facility. So, I think that was because we were catching up. It was an early part of the game for us in terms of permitting these facilities through our CUP process, which they hadn't been prior to that. So I just want to say, there are conditions, or there have been conditions, and I think that in some cases, government regulations help in many ways. Oops, we lost our lights, just like that second floor on the kennel. But, so that's my point. I just want to share my own story of that particular visit. So. I remember clearly the person saying, "Oh, you don't want to go up there." And we went, "Oh yeah." And we went up very carefully because it was a rickety staircase, and but we did. So, and we were glad we did.
Commissioner Ward, and then Commissioner Jacob.
Well, this board has usually taken into great consideration legal staff and planning staff recommendations. And what I read from the memo that we received from Stephanie Nuttall is that there are other agencies that are in charge of animal health and animal welfare. And our primary focus at the county level is, and by the court cases too, is the land use. We do not have trained staff. We do not have the capacity to do continuous inspections, and we should depend, and we can ask the Animal Board of Health. We can ask the USDA for any red flags and everything. And I know they're a cooperative agency. They are taxpayer funded. And so part of their obligation is to keep us informed of what's going on when they see something. So I just think we're asking our staff, both from a legal perspective and a planning staff perspective, to take on a task that other government agencies are already designated to do that. And I think we're trying to duplicate something. And not that animal health, I mean, even livestock, production animals need to be treated, properly and taken care of, good health and conditions and everything. So I don't know if this board's starting with puppies, then we move into, other areas of animal agriculture. But I think
Coming for the guns next,
I
right?
think it's, I think
Right?
it's just,
Yeah,
I think we're
right.
taking on more than what county government should be doing at this point in time. We should depend on our state and federal agencies to be our partners in this. Until we can think of.
Well, in response to this particular facility that Commissioner Kavesi was referring to with the 2 levels. So part of that CUP process eliminated that double level facility. That petitioner built a brand new facility, and that petitioner actually did call me tonight. And, I was very worried about, unless the public is they're there to persecute him, and if they can find anything to throw him under the bus for, that's what they're going to do. And he says, we just want to do the right thing. He said, at every corner, every opportunity, we want to do the best thing for the animals. We want to do the best thing for the community. And they're good people. And for us to be casting, shadows of doubt and using negative words like you just used, Commissioner Kavesi, Commissioner Ward, puppy mill, that's derogatory to those people. And I just had to respond that our process made that facility better.
Administrator Qualley, please.
So as planning director for the last 5.5 years, I was not part of that 2016, set of hearings and inspections. So I apologize that I didn't have that baseline. However, Chuck Zahner, a planner that has moved on to another county across the river, did sit down with me for a couple hours, fill me in on what was happening, inspections that he did at the behest of the board, just to make sure that those baselines that had been required were done. Socialization yard building when they weren't, the dimensions of that to ensure that those were done, per the standards of the agency. And since that time, the memo that you received from my department shows that there has been an uptick in stringency for the things that are relating to land use and zoning. So I just wanted to, I'm sure that you read my memo, which is actually Olivia's memo. But I think it does point out that the Planning Commission has made recommendations to the county board, and you folks have been the ones that have increased the stringency over the last 5 years. Thank you.
So I don't want to stop discussion, but I would like to speak. I have talked to multiple constituents, and I have been convinced that we need to do more, and that we at least need to involve folks in the conversation to help us figure that out. And so I think what Commissioner Olson is describing is that we use our regular process of asking the Planning Commission to consider a change, and I totally support that. It doesn't mean that we don't know at this side of it what will come out the other side, but I am in support of the motion. Is there any further discussion?
So I'm sorry, it's unclear. You're asking, what is the motion? And then what is I think it's critical, what is the timeline? So do we know, or we need more input before we know what we're voting on?
Commissioner Olson, would you be willing to restate it for us?
Yes, I was asking the planning commission to look at the ordinance, hold the regular public hearing process to get public input as well as professional input. And in the meantime, while that is happening, that we have a moratorium in place that we cannot have the expansion or addition of commercial dog breeding facilities.
Please.
At our legal advice that does not put in the timeline.
And I would note, in order to have a moratorium, you would actually have to go through the process of implementing an interim ordinance in order to do that. So it would be a multi-layer process to get there, but we would end up having to basically create an ordinance amendment for that interim, just like we did with silica sand, to halt everything and then engage in that. So it would require some additional language and hearings involved, but just so everybody's clear on what that process would be.
Okay. Commissioner Ward, is that clear for you?
No, it's not. So you're already asking for staff to conduct a public hearing. Initially, I heard you say you were going to ask Planning Commission to consider doing something. So a consideration would be the planning group would decide if it warrants more staff time, research, public hearings and everything. But now what I'm hearing is, no, we're already having a public hearing, which sets the stage at a much different level. It requires a lot of staff time and preparation. And I think they got a lot of things on their table.
This is a huge undertaking for staff. I mean, this is much like the frac sand ban and moratorium. But I guess the part I'm a little bit unclear with is I sit on the planning commission. Are you asking the planning commission to consider and give you their feedback? And if they don't tell you what you want to hear, are you really just telling them to, this is the outcome we want, do it? I mean, I don't understand, because I'm not sure that the makeup of the planning commission is going to give you the outcome you want. I mean, if you're just telling them what to do and it's a formality, then just tell them what to do.
Oh, sorry. I'm unclear from the discussion exactly what points of the zoning ordinance that we might want to be looking at for amendment. Because that would be helpful for, trying to ascertain the amount of time required. I'm down 3 full-time staff members as of Friday. My ability to conduct the inspections that are required of my office is going to be very limited through February. So I guess I'm asking for that clarification, and that so that legal department and our department can triage to achieve what it is that is needed.
Doesn't a ban really have to be written by the county attorney?
We do have a sample of a interim ordinance that we would go through the process. It's the same process that we went through to impose the moratorium for silica sand. So we would have to go through that process in addition to then working with the planning commission for the discussion that's being requested.
There's while you guys were talking, and I think we work as a team here in the attorney's office. So there is a kind of after that whole silica sand thing, the legislature did modify the ordinance, the moratorium ordinance, and it is now under 462.355. And adopting a moratorium requires an interim ordinance, and you have to go through, as Ms. Nuttall said, that there's a pretty standard procedure of public hearing, adopting a draft. And this is just for the interim ordinance to create the moratorium and the study that you want to potentially do on dog kennels. So there is a process, but it has to be followed.
So with that said, you're saying that my motion cannot be
I'm just saying that you would have to
I-
refer to the 462, 355.
It's,
I think she's saying.
it's more complicated than I think you think
Okay.
it is.
Yeah.
You say that.
Will you hold
Oh, no.
a second?
To change the process to go through the interim ordinance?
Yes.
Yes, I would
I
support
will
that.
withdraw my motion.
Okay. Now Commissioner Jacob asked for the floor, but no.
It's been answered.
Please proceed.
I will make a motion to follow the process as outlined by legals.
So
Mr. Ward, please.
I have great concern for planning staff. We have people who are putting in septic systems so that they can build their new houses and live in them or correct them and such. And we know septic systems are critical in rural, rural lifestyle for clean water. We have feedlots that need to be inspected. We have an onslaught of variance requests, conditional use permits. How do we expect the downsized planning staff to do this? I mean, timing is everything. You talk about helping our employees do the workload without burning them out. I'm sorry. Again, to lay this on at this time with being down three staff, how do you expect them, where do they prioritize their work? I think we need to be fair to them.
Pay for performance. Perfect.
No, you don't support that.
Commissioner Jacob.
Yes, another question for legal is, what is the role of the planning commission from here? What if the planning commission doesn't see the need for a moratorium or a potential ban? But the county board wants it to happen. How does that interrelate?
Maybe it would be best if we brought this to the next county board meeting and we could provide you with an exact outline of what that would lay out, especially given the new process that's in statute. We could come back and say, if you go this route, it would look like this. Here's what timelines we could potentially have. If you go this route, this is what it could look like, and present those. I think trying to piece it together on the fly, especially with the change to the statute. The honest answer is I'm not 100% sure what it would look like or what the involvements would be.
Yeah, I think we're asking a lot of legal questions all at once. So, I mean, that seems reasonable. And in just, fact of the matter, I am concerned a little bit about offending the planning commission in general. I mean, there's all of the members on each side of the issue are we just telling them what to do, or are we asking them to participate in a process? So, I want to.
Director Qualley.
Just a couple quick things. The deadline for submittal for the September 13th board meeting is noon on Monday. So could we be looking at the end of September meeting instead, is my proposal. And also, I want the commissioners, and I think you do know that, your planning staff is going to do our very best to achieve the goals and objectives that you put before us. During the septic inspection season, now we're going to be down to one septic inspector and 28 permits out there right now, which is a physical impossibility with, on a good day with good weather. And so, if we could, the winter season gives us a chance to get a little bit more done. That was why I proposed maybe just a slight delay in the actual bringing it forward. But again, we'll do our very best to provide the information that you require. Thank you.
So do we need to restate the motion?
I thought I did.
Okay, so it's to follow a
To
process
follow the legal process as outlined by county attorney.
and to have a report back on what our options are?
Right. And
I
I
think there
would
needs to be
do
a
that.
preface to that. It's not the county attorney's motion.
I didn't say that. I said that her statutory guideline that needs to be followed, that 462 or whatever it was.
You still haven't really stated what it is you're trying to accomplish with that. I think that needs to preface what you're at.
To bring forth an interim ordinance.
Okay, well, now it's set. I think that needs to be part of it. And probably for what?
to have time to study the issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, we need to have a point blank, black and white motion in front of us to
We've
vote
discussed all
on.
that. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, it needs to be stated.
yeah,
Discussed a lot of
we
things.
stated, very clearly state a motion before we vote on it.
So I have it down here that we need an interim ordinance to create a study and follow the legal process and find out what our options are.
So whose motion is it?
It's Greg's, but I wrote down what he said.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't have to remember.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
Okay, is there further discussion? Hearing none. Yeah, Commissioner
Okay,
Ward.
So will we get a timeline before, but again, staff has said they don't have time.
No, I
They don't
believe
have
that,
people.
I believe that was part of what Ms.
But
Nuttall said.
does 462 give us a timeline? I'm sorry, but you brought it up.
Yep. Well, I wanted to be clear because there was a
Yes.
question asked about what
Right.
basically what is the statutory authority to do it, and it has been modified over the years. I think what Assistant County Nuttall was suggesting would be a good idea, that we present to the board potentially at the next meeting.
No, two meetings.
Two meetings?
Two meetings,
Two meetings.
because Monday's the deadline for the next meeting.
Monday's the deadline for what? I'm sorry.
We would
the
have to
third
have what
meeting.
we are presenting ready
So-
by Monday.
Oh,
So
okay.
with all that said, 2 meetings, I mean, we seem to be pushing the motion that sets up a timeline that's maybe unrealistic for staff to accomplish.
No, at the meeting on the 28th, we will be presented with some options and they will include
The
timelines.
motion didn't say options. Your motion is putting in an interim
That's
ordinance.
part
The
of the-
interim ordinance sets a timeline.
So can I ask if this is a clarified version of what is being requested? That at the September 28th meeting, we come back with the options available regarding an interim ordinance for this board to consider?
That's what I thought I heard.
But that's not how I heard the motion.
That's kind of what I thought we were doing.
Just to make sure
but-
that everybody's on the same page. That's how I was
I
understanding.
apologize if I wasn't clear. But yes,
Okay, Ms. Holte, how do you have the motion? 'Cause you're the note taker.
Go back to the recording.
Well, again, I think by statutes, they put things on a timeline.
Right.
And I think the motion says what I'm hearing is we disregard the timeline. Well, it may be a more aggressive timeline than we can accomplish.
My notes were, the motion was to proceed with an interim ordinance, which would potentially put us on timelines.
Yeah, exactly. That's
But then
what,
it was clarified that he was really referencing getting time to study and get a report back about the options. So.
okay, I think a
if
good
the-
lawyer could fight the wording.
Attorney Sonneman.
Thank you. I mean, I would also include in that, and it's kind of the options, but being very specific that we would be providing to you the information as to what is the procedure for creating an interim ordinance, which is what you, or at least some of you, are asking for in terms of the moratorium and then a study. So the interim ordinance, as usually is put together, has the interim ordinance and what is the study that's being conducted while the interim ordinance is in effect. And yes, it is 1 year and it can be extended twice after that. But we'll put that in a memo to you on the 28th, right? Is that what it is?
If that's what if that motion passes, yes, we
Okay,
will have
but
that
I'm sorry,
presented for
so
the
you're
28th.
saying but if you start this, then that 1 year to do the study?
If you wouldn't be starting it tonight, you would be
Right.
starting it on the 28th if that's your election.
If
What we
you
would
adopt
present
it.
on the 28th is the options that you
Yes.
could follow regarding process and if you choose to pursue that interim ordinance.
Right, so on the 28th, we'll have a robust discussion on what are the parameters of the study and what,
Yep. Should you
Yes.
choose to do the interim ordinance and what the parameters of the study
Right.
would be.
Yeah, you're not saying adopt an interim ordinance tonight, so there is no timeline that's triggered. It's asking staff, legal and planning staff or municipality staff to put together, I think, here's how to do this. kind of
But I
thing.
heard ordinance, I heard moratorium, I heard ban, I heard a
Right,
lot of
but-
trigger words.
But this is only putting together a report or a memo to you to, if you want to impose a ban or a moratorium, I should call it, a temporary moratorium while you study the dog kennel issue. This is how procedurally, both legally and process-wise from planning commission through the appearing at, or going through the board, that this is how to do it.
Okay, so there are going to be people that are concerned that this is their livelihood, breeding their facility.
Yes.
They've made huge investments monetarily, socially, their families are involved in everything. So does this put them in jeopardy, or are they always grandfathered in as long as it's under the same ownership, or how does we're playing with people's
They should be.
lives.
They should be because they've already been permitted. They were legally permitted. We will verify that and present that as part of that. But my understanding would be that because they already have their permits, they can continue with their permits.
But they wouldn't be able to expand.
They wouldn't be able to expand.
Or they couldn't sell, or they
At least during the interim ordinance.
Okay, and I would be concerned too if they can pass it on to another family member.
Conditional use permits run with the land.
Yep, so that's not changed.
Okay, so it would stay with the land.
Okay,
And
so
they could sell the land
Sure
and
could.
maintain the conditional use permit. Okay.
Director Qualley and then Commissioner Kavesi.
So just a quick thing, and then the last part of, Madam Chair, the remarks of Commissioner Ward. The last permit that for a dog breeding facility was an interim use permit that was approved. So there's been a slight shift that way too, pursuant to my earlier remarks about stringency. The other thing is, I've heard talk and valuable discussion about what an interim ordinance could look like, but the agency has stated that administrative issues have cropped up with 2 breeders. I can tell you right now that there's many in our management plan that sometimes we need to do a little poking and prodding for. Commissioner Jacob one time said any given day, any of us that are in the animal husbandry business could be in violation for something that's administrative. I have not heard that there is an outcry of complaints to the Board of Animal Health in this regard. So I guess if we're in the process of making an interim ordinance, I would like to know what the content of it is, what are we recommending in this ordinance? We haven't heard from any of the animal breeders in question, but I guess some guidelines would be helpful so that we can bring back to you what it is you're looking for.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, and what I was going to address was that earlier you had asked, Director Qualley, you had asked for specific information regarding what parts of the ordinance. So I think these 2 pieces, your question now goes along with that. So obviously the land use part, whatever, if there are pieces of that can be strengthened, there's been much discussion, there's been research on lighting and ventilation and all of those kinds of things. And then there's also been discussion and research on the social damage issue, how important it is to prevent that, or can we prevent it? So those kinds of pieces, I think, are what some of the public has raised and what some of the board members have raised, and that would be a start. I don't know if that helps you or not.
My understanding, at least from the discussion, would be that the interim ordinance would have to do with ceasing the permitting of dog kennels pending the outcome of the study. And
Okay, so what I was describing actually is the next step, if we get to that.
We would need to address
Yeah.
what would be considered as part of the study, but the ordinance would basically
Okay.
say, until we have this study done, we're not going to be issuing conditional orders.
Okay, so then I'll just save those remarks for later. Yeah.
Jacob?
Commissioner Kavesi just resolved the issue.
Director Qualley.
And we're getting ahead of ourselves on this.
So the information in the zoning ordinance is what you're asking for revisions potentially. So right now you can have dog kennels in the RH Rural Heritage Area and as well as the Ag Resource District. Right now, all of the dog and cat breeding facilities are in the Ag Resource District. So for instance, in the zoning ordinance, if you wanted to say, I don't want to have any of these facilities in the Rural Heritage District, and so I would like to remove that from the zoning ordinance. Or I would like to have an increased setback so that barking doesn't disturb the neighbors in areas where there are more kennels. Or perhaps an overlay district saying, we don't want to have any more dog and cat kennels permitted within X number of feet of another one. So those are all things that would be components of the zoning ordinance that would not usurp the current inspection for animal welfare by the Board of Animal Health. So those are just a couple of things. I mean, I'm not saying those are the things that are wanted. Those are just some things that are in the zoning ordinance at this time.
Further discussion?
Sorry.
Attorney Sonneman.
I want to correct myself. Sorry, I'm doing research as you're talking. It's 394.34 for interim zoning for county.
That's what I thought.
It's quick.
You know what? Put it in the meeting.
Right, I was-
Attorney Sonneman corrected.
Corrects yourself.
Self-correction.
Yeah, that was municipal housing, but hey, it's the same thing, interim zoning. So.
Mr. Olson.
Question for Ms. Qualley. When was the last application for dog breeding? Do you know?
2018.
Greg Eric.
To Maple Valley.
So
Okay.
the last conditional use permit or interim use permit application that was heard by the Planning Commission on July 15th of 2021, which means it would have come to the county board, I believe, in August of 2021.
Is there further discussion? Commissioner Kibesi.
Okay, that's the one that was denied by the county board.
That is the one that was denied. Prior to that, there was one in April of 2021 as well.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion before us, which I am not going to state, but perhaps Ms. Nuttall could state for us.
My understanding is that it would be to return on September 28th to present options regarding an interim ordinance, including information as to the procedure and what the study would entail.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries. We are now on to the final items on the agenda. I had a request for board action that came out of our working session earlier where we talked about the outside agencies. We had a memo from County Attorney Sonneman from back in 2017, suggesting that we should form a written policy. I would like to advance the idea of having a conversation about whether we should do that or not. So I would be looking for a second.
Second.
Oh, and I think I probably should have given you the gavel when I did that. I'm sorry. I'm tired. Okay. Okay. That concludes our business.
Motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Olson has moved. Kibesi has seconded that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those
Support that motion.
all those in favor signify.
Accomplished what we needed to accomplish tonight.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.